Hello. You might be wondering why I'm in a orange raincoat. It's raining out lately, so I thought it was appropriate. I also thought it would make things more fun, and maybe you would be more inclined to watch this video if I'm in an orange rain jacket. And so this has nothing to do with the video today, but before I talk, the topic of the video is the inner critic, and that's what I'm working on this week for my podcast, and in some working on some other stuff about it because it's a very good topic. Before I get into this, I do want to tell you I have a workshop coming up next month called Start an Unsuccessful Podcast, and I'll put the Eventbrite link somewhere on this video. It'll be in the description. So that's the sponsor. The workshop is two sessions, and it's designed for people who have trouble getting started, like they want to do something like a podcast and they're having trouble getting started because they're like figuring out all their equipment all the time, and they'll do anything but start. And I think the benefit of a podcast is that you don't have to do what I'm doing right now, which is appear on video. Probably there was some funny thing about public speaking. I'm trying to remember the quote. I think there was like something like they polled people about public speaking, and there was a percentage of people that came back and said like they'd rather die than speak in public. I don't know if it was that drastic, but podcasting removes a lot of that, and I think it's a fairly intimate platform. I ran a podcast when I was younger. It was the medium itself was really in an immature state, and I mean that in a good way. When I had my first podcast, they were mainly music mixes and DJing, and I enjoyed doing it, but I didn't really see the point to doing it. And then I've come back to it lately as more of a test, just for fun, because other people asked me for help producing podcasts. So I wanted to have my own, and I've been doing it every week for a few months, and I missed about two weeks when stuff just gets a bit too hectic, and then I think it's a lot of fun. So that's what the workshop is about. And the main thing for people who are wondering why they would do a podcast is it allows you to learn a topic really well. So I would almost call it a replacement for going to school on certain issues. And you'd be able to interview, I mean, as a networking tool, you can't, it's a good opener for interviewing people and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of benefits to it. Now, on to this thing. So the inner critic is one of the, I think, times I first learned about it. I did not do my research before this video, but there was a book that I knew about called like Talking to Your Inner Gremlins. That was when I first learned, and I'm not even going to really recommend that book to you right now, but it's a short book, and if I remember the title, I'll print it on here or I'll look it up. And that book is about like the different talking to the different elements inside your mind that are critical. The other one that taught me about the inner critic is there's a Seth Godin blog post about it's called The Worst Boss in the World. And the worst boss in the world, it's really short. Obviously all his posts are short, but it goes through like the worst boss, might talk to you a certain, tells you you're not good enough, does all this, blah, 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 blah. And then it ends with the worst boss in the world is you. And I love that. And it's probably the most truest thing in the world is that one of the reasons I'm particularly interested in the topic is sometimes it's hard to play music or write music because you've stopped yourself before you can even do anything. You don't even give yourself a chance, and I think a lot of people don't pursue these areas as a result. And when you just play music for 20 minutes, or you work on a track for an hour, so much can get done. But when you've stopped yourself in your tracks before you could even pick up an instrument or start writing a book or whatever you're kind of working on, I think it's unfortunate because it really shouldn't happen that way. And the main message of the video is that I wouldn't tell you how to not have an inner critic, because if you didn't have an inner critic, you would have no, I think you would call it conscience, and you would do very stupid things all the time. So your critic is related to safety and keeping yourself in literally safe places. It overreaches a lot, and we need to learn when to make use of a mechanism that's there to help us, and then when to totally abandon it and do work that matters. So my tip is, it comes from Elizabeth Gilbert in the book Big Magic. She talks about, I don't know if she refers to it as a critic as well, but it's really referring to ego, and that she reminds people that you are driving the car, and you can put your ego in the back seat, and that's really what it comes down to. And you can acknowledge, you just have to say thank you, really. Thank your inner critic for looking out for you, and say, thanks, but I'm going to do this anyways. Thanks for telling me that I'm incapable of playing guitar. I really appreciate that, but I'm going to just give this a shot for a few minutes and see where it goes. And that's really what it comes down to, is not creating some kind of inner conflict inside yourself. You would be pointless you would actually probably be insane if you were having a very violent dialogue inside your head. I think insane's actually a bit extreme. I wouldn't use that particularly, but you'd be very unsettled person if you treated your critic that way. I think the best approach is to be gentle with it, and eventually you can get to a state of pure detachment from that critic, and that the critic would just it would only get like a millisecond of airtime, and it just gets kind of whisked away. That would kind of be the ideal state. I think it's hard to get there. It takes a lot of practice, and you just got to keep showing up. So that's it. I hope this was good, and don't forget about the Unsuccessful Podcast workshop, which is coming up in October. So talk to you soon.